In episode 6, Dijkstra is real proud of himself for getting the jump on Geralt. He tells him, though, that he's kind of just taking him prisoner until they're done rounding up the mages that they want. And that's what Dijkstra's soldiers are doing. They're rounding up a bunch of mages. Now, some mages have actually joined them in this, but one of them is not Yennefer. She covertly sneaks out of the room and sees Geralt's sword and realizes that something is wrong with their little plan. Using her magic, she's able to hide from the soldiers, but also speak to Ciri and wake her up, because she knows that all of this has been orchestrated, not just to round up mages, but also to get Ciri. And getting Ciri was supposed to be Radiviv's job. It's one of the whole reasons he slept with Jaskier, but Jaskier catches him early in the morning trying to get to Ciri, and he confronts him about it. He's pissed off that he was used. Radovid makes this play to Jaskier that this is the best thing for Ciri and for the continent, but also that he actually had true feelings for him, and Jaskier tells him to kick rocks. Either way, Radovid ain't leaving with Ciri. Ciri's already escaped. And so is Yennefer. She's out to find Ciri and protect her. While trying to sneak out of Aretuza, though, she does run into Lydia, who, just like Dijkstra, is real arrogant and pompous about the whole situation. She starts telepathically speaking to Yen, telling her that what she's trying to do is pointless. It's too late. They're going to have the girl. Lydia is also not going to allow Yennefer to just walk out. She starts attacking Yen, and she is really powerful. Yen is only saved when Marigold shows up and kills Lydia. Yennefer, though, is going on this one alone. Marigold heads up to help with the coup. And it should be pretty easy for Marigold to find the location of all of the mages that are chained up, because Dijkstra and company have put them all in one room. As Geralt walks in and sees what's upon him, he asks Dijkstra why are they being chained up, and Dijkstra says, well, they're spies, weakening us for Nilfgaard's march of conquest. They're not all traitors, though, just Vilgefortz and his cronies, but the rest are going to bear witness to what we do to them. And what you've got is all of these mages chained up, and when they're chained up, they can't use their powers. Dijkstra goes on to tell Geralt that they have ample evidence regarding Vilgefortz's connection with Nilfgaard. But they're not looking to hold a trial, they're looking to hold a purge. Now, one mage who is not bound in chains is Tissaia. She was supposed to be, but the two that came for her, Tissaia told them that she'd melt their faces if they do that to her. So her hands are free. And when she walks in the room, she sees all of her fellow mages chained up, and they're all begging her to unbound these chains using her powers. But Dijkstra tells Tissaia exactly what he told Geralt, that they have proof of Vilgefortz using portals to connect Aretuza with Nilfgaard. You've got people like Arturus who just flat out do not believe that, but Dijkstra's group tells the entire room that they know Vilgefortz has had Rience doing his dirty work. Vilgefortz, though, tries to deflect. He says that Dijkstra and Philippa should be on trial. But Geralt speaks up and says, well, there is credence to what they're saying. You did know this was coming. You mentioned it yesterday. Geralt, though, then notices that there is a fog coming in. It's pretty unnatural, and he tells the group that someone is using it to conceal ships. Vilgefortz then pleads to Tissaia, saying, don't you see it's a Redanian army? They're coming for us. He starts begging Tissaia to break this binding spell and allow them to use their magic to defend Aretuza. And after a little more pleading, she finally does it, and the mages start attacking their captors. While all the fighting is going on, Dijkstra tries to sneak out, but Geralt isn't letting him walk out the door. Dijkstra tells Geralt it's too late. You know what? I'll just tell you where we've taken her. Because at this point, Dijkstra is convinced that Redania has Ciri, but they don't. Geralt decides to respond by attacking him, breaking his leg, messing him up pretty good, and then leaving him there crying on the floor. He then heads off to go find Ciri and protect her. But back where he just came from, the mages make quick work of their captors. Now they just have to deal with this Redanian army that's coming. Tissaia sees Vilgefortz leave the room, and she chases after him, saying, we can take the Redanians out if we just unite and trap them in the tunnels. That's when Vilgefortz comes clean. He tells her that's not going to happen. The Scoia'tael will enter this place and burn it to the ground in the name of the White Flame. And it's at that moment that Tissaia realizes she's been played this entire time. She asks Vilgefortz, why would you do this? This is our home. And he corrects her and says, no, this is your home. I don't care who destroys this place. I have my own goals. and they no longer include you. Stregobor, with his pride, he was easy to set up, and you've got your undying trust. You were easy to fool. He then turns around and, using his powers, he gives the Redanian army the gateway they would need to enter Aretuza. But when the army does enter, it's not Redanian, it's Elven. It's Francesca and Filavandrel and all of them. They're ready to take back what they feel like is theirs, but Tissaia and the rest of the mages are ready to defend it at all costs. This starts a pretty big war between the two factions. Filavandrel, R.I.P., he perishes. That really messes up Francesca. Arturus, though, also dies. He dies, though, at the hand of his niece, because Frangilla is back and she's helping the elves. Those are the two big losses. Most of the soldiers, though, die when this ring of fire ends up falling out of the sky that was put up there by Philippa and brought down by Francesca. So Aretuza's not doing so well. It's pretty much up in smoke. You can see it from pretty far away. But Ciri, she doesn't notice it because she finally finds Yennefer, and that's all she cares about. They, however, are attacked by Rience. Ciri goes after Rience, but it doesn't take too long for him to surround her in a ring of fire. Yennefer isn't worried at first because he says, "You're not going to kill her. Your master wants her alive." But Rience says, "I have no master." And that's when Yennefer is forced to pivot. She does have an ace up her sleeve. She acts like she's putting down her weapon, which is her sword, but she throws it, and it's caught by Geralt, who cuts Rience's head off. And now the trio is reunited. Geralt tells Yennefer that she was right. Vilgefortz is at the center of all of this. He brought Nilfgaard and the Scoia'tael, and they're all searching for one person, and it's Ciri. Because of it, he says, "We need to get off this island." But then Yennefer notices the smoke that is coming from Aretuza, and she knows that Tissaia is in danger. She can see from the sky that Tissaia is summoning Alzur's Thunder, which is the spell of the last resort. She knows that Tissaia and the rest of the mages are in danger. Ciri turns to Yennefer and says, "Go to her. We'll be okay. Help your friend." When Yennefer finally does arrive back in Aretuza, it's at the last stand stage of this battle, and the elves are winning. The mages are completely outnumbered. Yennefer is ready to defend Aretuza, but she gets a little bit of help from Stregobor, of all people. He promises to take on the entire elven army in order to buy Yennefer and the other mages some time to escape, because Aretuza is crumbling. Outside, Ciri and Geralt are also trying to figure out a way off the island. They then hear a horse in the distance, and it's Cahir. As soon as she sees him, Ciri wants to kill this guy. She has vengeance on her mind, and she attacks him, but all Cahir does is defend himself. He doesn't really attack back. He finally throws his sword down and says, "I'm not going to fight you. Back in Cintra, when I took you, I did everything I was asked with no hesitation. But now, I can't stop asking questions. I've discovered that I was wrong, and I can't give you back the life I stole. But I can offer you my life. So take it." But as Ciri is contemplating her move, they hear horses in the distance, and it's the Scoia'tael, that sort of elven mercenary group. They're coming for Ciri. When he sees them in the distance, Cahir jumps up and says, "Go. I will find you." Because he's going to hold them off and hopefully allow Ciri and Geralt to escape. They head down to the boats that the elves use to get into Aretuza, but right before they're about to leave, Geralt senses that they're not alone. He turns to Ciri and says, "Go, run away. I'll take care of this." And he's right, they're not. Vilgefortz is down there as well. After opening up the portal for the elves, he headed to Tissaia's room where he found Istredd with the book. He didn't kill Istredd or take it from him. Instead, he pushed him through a portal where he knows that he can find him again. He then realized that some people might want to escape, that person being Cirilla, so he headed down to the only place where she would be able to, the beach. Standing in his way, though, is Geralt. And Geralt's a really formidable opponent, but Vilgefortz, he's got magic on his side, he's well-trained, and he beats the ever-loving crap out of Geralt. With Geralt badly injured, Vilgefortz doesn't finish him off. Instead, he heads to go find Ciri, and he knows where she's going. She's going to Tor Alora. It's that giant tower next to Aretuza that's used as a sort of lightning conductor. Sure enough, Ciri is indeed there, but when he comes across her, she's talking to the wall. Ciri's getting some kind of message from it. She's seeing symbols, but she doesn't know what it means. Vilgefortz tells Cirilla, "You're not ready for this kind of power." But Cirilla seems to be tuning him out. The power from this wall, it's getting stronger. Until finally, it seems to explode, throwing Vilgefortz way back. But there's a visual explosion from the tower that can be seen. It can be seen by the elves, who are badly beaten. It can also be seen by the mages, which include Yennefer and an exhausted Tissaia. They watch as it crumbles to the ground. And as for Geralt, he's on death's door, but he's saved by Marigold. Now, you might be wondering where Ciri went. Well, in episode 7, we get the answer to that. She went to a place called the Frying Pan. They call it the Frying Pan because it's a vast desert. There's no one around. At least, not at first. Ciri does get the sense that there is somebody else there with her, and in actuality, there is. But as soon as she arrives, she disappears. She's kind of just watching Ciri from a distance. After Ciri resets her dislocated arm, she has to figure out how to get out of the desert. Her first attempt is to try to get a hold of Yennefer, using that locator coin that Yennefer gave her a while back. Although, it doesn't work this time. Ciri realizes this is going to be all on her. She starts walking all day, but the elements are really, really starting to get to her. But it's not like she has a choice. She has to keep going. Day turns into night. She starts hallucinating a little bit, thinking about past memories, thinking about life with Geralt and Yennefer, and really using that as motivation to try to get out of the desert and keep going. Day 2, she thinks she sees water, which is a big relief because she's hungry and she's thirsty, but it's this clear goo. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to her. That clear goo, though, is the saliva of this giant sand monster that attacks Ciri. Ciri, though, still has her instincts, so she's able to avoid danger and get out of its mouth before it clamps down. While the monster goes away, something else returns in its place. A unicorn. A full-on, real unicorn. Actually, Ciri doesn't know if it's real because the unicorn won't let Ciri touch it. Instead, it seems to be leading Ciri towards something. The bad news is, when the unicorn goes over a hill, Ciri loses it. She doesn't know where it went. Ciri has no choice but to continue walking in the desert. The elements that plagued her a day ago are getting worse and worse. Her stomach getting emptier and emptier. She sees a lizard, and she finds the lizard's eggs, and she starts chowing down on them. And then she's visited by her first apparition. It's one of her mother. At first, her mother is nice, giving her a hug. Seems to really enjoy seeing Ciri. But then her mother completely turns on her. She starts saying things to Ciri, like how Geralt must have been relieved to see Ciri go into that tower and then watch the tower explode, because Ciri has just been such a cross to bear. It makes Ciri feel like complete crap. But the insults don't continue for very long because the apparition goes away. The fact that that whole conversation didn't happen, or the fact that it might have hit too close to home, ends up boiling up in Ciri, and she takes her frustration out on the lizard she finds by eating it. That was a bad decision, though. The lizard doesn't sit well in her stomach. She starts throwing it up. And then suddenly she finds herself not in a desert, but in a room with the person who's been following her this entire time. It's a woman in a cloak. You can't see her face. She starts giving Ciri some advice, like, don't eat the lizards, they're poisonous. And when Ciri asks who she is, she simply says, I'm the past, and this is the future. Or at least a possible one. Ciri mumbles to herself how she must be going insane, but this person says, powerful women, they've been labeled insane since the dawn of time. I was labeled insane. We actually have a lot in common. We were both, quote, insane princesses that were abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect us. At least your family that royally screwed you over had the decency to die. I had to kill mine. And the fact that this person killed their own family comes as a real surprise to Ciri. Ciri reveals to this person that she feels like she has the power to change things. And the woman says, you're not the first person to feel that way, but you could be the last. And then the woman completely disappears. When Ciri wakes up the next morning, she's just sleeping on rocks. She's not alone, though. The unicorn has come back. And the unicorn leads Ciri to water in the middle of the desert. With a little bit more energy, Ciri and the unicorn continue to make their way through the desert, and at least now Ciri has someone to talk to. And boy, does she. She fills the horse in on everybody. Doesn't really seem like the horse is talking back, though. But the next day, Ciri has her second apparition. This time, it's Queen Calanthe. And if Ciri thought her mom was mean, it was nothing compared to what Calanthe was. She was downright vitriolic. Ciri, though, sticks up for herself. When Calanthe blames Ciri for things, Ciri reminds Calanthe that she allowed Cintra to just burn away into dust and oblivion. Ciri, though, gets so frustrated by what Calanthe continues to say about her that she tries to punch her, but it goes right through Calanthe and goes right into a rock. The apparition of Calanthe goes away, but the injured hand, that's still there. That was dumb. And the mystery-shrouded woman reminds Ciri of that when she visits her that night. Although this time, the woman reveals herself. Her name is Falca, and Ciri knows exactly who she is. Because the stories of Falca are that she was a demon, a cursed elven monster. But Falca, her side of the story is a little bit different. She felt like she should have been queen, but when her father denied her her royal destiny, she decided to rally the common folk. With the common folk's help, she took back what was rightfully hers. But she did so using blood and fire. It was kind of fitting, since in the end, they tied her to a stake and burned her alive. Ciri is disgusted by what Falca did, but Falca defends her actions. Falca trying to point out to Ciri that it's really all the people around her who should be to blame for how she feels, and Ciri reminding Falca that she burned her family and led a rebellion. Falca finally says to Ciri, if you want to change the system, burn it to the ground. And then she disappears. The next morning, Ciri is awoken by her unicorn. They continue to walk the desert when they're attacked by a giant sand monster. All that Witcher training pays off. Ciri destroys it, but the unicorn is injured in the process. Ciri does her best to patch the unicorn up, and the unicorn and Ciri continue to walk until finally the injury becomes too much for the unicorn, and the unicorn has to lay down. Ciri creates a little bit of a camp with a fire, but she's trying to heal this unicorn. Unfortunately, there's nothing she can draw magic from. And that's when Falco once again returns. She tells Ciri there is something you can draw magic from, and she points to the fire. Ciri is really hesitant to do this because she's been warned about how dangerous fire magic is, and at Aretuza it's banned. But with a little bit of nudge from Falco, she decides to give in because it is the only option to save the unicorn. She sticks her hand in the fire, she's feeling the power, she's controlling it, and she is able to heal this unicorn. As soon as the unicorn is healed, it gets up and runs off. It's pretty rude, doesn't even say thank you. Ciri's kind of upset about the fact that the unicorn ran away and tries to stop it, but Falco says, no, don't. Those who are afraid of what you are dead weight. Let them go. Ciri then notices that her hand still is controlling the fire. And Falco says, it feels amazing, doesn't it? And to think you've had this power inside you your entire life. You just didn't harness it. Ciri does admit that this power feels easy. It comes naturally to her. Falco says to Ciri that the power is a gift. One that they'll either wish to use you for or destroy you for. But it certainly isn't a curse. And that's what it's been made out to be. She then pushes Ciri into the fire and Ciri is consumed by it. But she goes to this other kind of world where she's in the middle of fire, harnessing the power, while Falco discusses how her friends will eventually turn on her and become her enemy. So Ciri, in order to prevent this, really needs to get ahead of it and kill them. Ciri starts crying, saying, I don't want this. But Falco says, this is your destiny. Ciri continues to say, I don't want this. And she's hearing voices. And finally, she just blurts out, I relinquish my powers. And it's all over. She wakes up in the middle of the desert, although this time she's not alone. There are 4 people around her, and they know who she is, because Ciri's wanted. The White Flame has put the word out around the continent to keep your eyes peeled for a girl with blonde hair and green eyes. And Ciri fits that description. So Ciri is taken prisoner. Back at Aretuza, Jaskier shows up hoping to find Ciri or anybody, but the only person he sees at first is Radovid, who he's surprised to see. Radovid fills Jaskier in as to what happened there and why Aretuza looks the way it does. The big news is the fact that the Second War has begun. Even though he's mad at him, Jaskier jumps into action. He realizes that Radovid needs to get out of there. He's in danger. He knows of an old trapper's route that he can send him through. He writes down a couple of directions, a couple of names to ask for, and he says to Radovid, "This will get you back to the capital." Radovid tells Jaskier that he should probably come with him, but Jaskier says no. You don't understand. The war outside, it doesn't compare to what Geralt will unleash on the continent to find Ciri. Radovid offers to go with Jaskier and help and prove to him that he actually does care about him and he could be valuable. And Jaskier thinks about it and says, maybe, after I find Ciri. Radovid, however, doesn't think that Ciri's alive because he saw the tower explode, and he does warn Jaskier about this. Jaskier doesn't say a word, he just heads out. And then he runs into Yennefer. She tells him that Geralt has been taken to Brooklyn to heal up. So that's where Jaskier heads. The Dryads have been keeping Geralt safe while trying to heal him up. Takes a little bit of convincing when Jaskier shows up, but they eventually allow Jaskier to see his friend. Jaskier tells Geralt that Yennefer is fine. As for Ciri, he has bad news. On his way to Brooklyn, he got word that Ciri has been found by Nilfgaard. After what happens at Aretuza, everybody that was battling there kind of goes their separate ways. They need to regroup, but they're also all still searching for Ciri. And word has gotten out that Ciri is headed to Nilfgaard. The White Flame has her. One of the people that's most upset is King Vizimir. It's not like Vizimir really cares about getting Ciri, but what he does care about is the optics. He sent Dijkstra and Philippa to do a job, and they just didn't. He was supposed to purge the Brotherhoods, but there are no brothers left. Aretuza's in rocks, and he hasn't heard from Radovid yet, so he feels like he's dead. He wants to make an example of somebody, and that somebody is going to be Philippa, and he wants Dijkstra to do it. Radovid, however, comes back later that night. King Vizimir is thrilled to see him. He's very relieved. He wants to get him settled and get a bath, but Radovid says, I'm not staying. I've found someone that needs me, and right now he needs my help, so I'm leaving. King Vizimir reluctantly agrees, and Radovid goes off to get ready to leave. But not too far down the hall, you've got Dijkstra, drunk, pacing back and forth about what the king has ordered him. He can't bring himself to do it. He goes to Philippa's room, and he explains that in the end, even though they think Vizimir is an idiot, he is their king, and they failed him, and sacrifices need to be made because of it. But he points the blade at him, and he tells Philippa, do it. Do it, and tell Vizimir that it was all my fault. But Philippa doesn't do it. She puts the knife away and tells Dijkstra, I knew I could trust you with my life, but I could never trust you with my plan. And that plan was to eliminate Vizimir. She has that girl that she hooked up with in the castle cut Vizimir's throat. They then usher in the King Radovid era. So for the moment, Radovid is not going anywhere. And right under Radovid's nose in his own kingdom, Yennefer, Tissaia, and a couple of the other mages. Because they're frantically looking for Ciri. They're trying to figure out where Vilgefortz hid her, and they go to that Redanian castle, the one that Vilgefortz was using as an experiment room. They don't find Ciri, but they do find the remnants of his experiments. By looking at the experiments, though, they realize just who they're dealing with and how powerful Vilgefortz truly is. Upon leaving the castle, Tissaia especially feels like an idiot. Ever since she realized she was betrayed by Vilgefortz, she's felt really bad, but it seems like lately she's just been constantly reminded about how dumb the move was, about how she shouldn't have trusted him the entire time. They're all about to go their separate ways. For some, back to Aretuza. For others, back looking for Ciri. But Marigold stops everyone and says, we can't leave these girls. We have to give them a proper burial. Initially, there's a little bit of pushback, but Yennefer says, no, Marigold's right. We have to do right by these girls. So they walk back in the castle, and they get ready to do a ceremonial burial for them. Right before she joins the other girls, Yennefer goes to check on Tissaia because she knows that she's not right now. Tissaia is really beating herself up about all the lives that were lost. Yennefer, being a good friend, tells her none of it would have mattered. The war was inevitable, and deep down, Tissaia is a good person because she didn't hand Ciri over. Yennefer is forced to give Tissaia a little bit of a pep talk, remind Tissaia who the hell she is, and how valuable she is, and how much they need her. It is appreciated. Tissaia gives her a hug, but in the end, it doesn't work. When Yennefer goes down and joins Marigold and a few of the other mages for the ceremonial burial, Tissaia pens Yennefer a goodbye note and then kills herself. Yennefer realizes it's happening when flowers fall from the sky and she puts two and two together. The note is really heartfelt, and she refers to Yennefer as her daughter. It's pretty clear that there was a love between the two. After the dust kind of settles and she collects herself, Yennefer knows that in order to get Ciri back, she's going to need Geralt's help. She heads to Brooklyn, where Geralt is still on the mend. Ethne has put one of her most trusted soldiers, named Milva, in charge of kind of healing Geralt back. Milva doesn't really want to do it, but she is following orders. Ethne reminds Milva that at one point she was Geralt. Milva's issue is Geralt isn't listening. He's not healthy enough, and he's trying to leave early. Because Geralt knows the severity of the situation, he knows that every moment that he isn't searching for Ciri, she's in danger. But the fact is, Geralt isn't healthy. The healing waters that they've been using, the tactics, it's not working. Geralt will try to get up and train for a little bit, and Milva has to bring him back down to earth and say, dude, you're useless right now. Neither you or this bard are any good to that girl dead, and right now, with the way you're carrying yourself, you would get killed pretty quickly. What you need is rest. You need to recuperate. So when Yennefer finally reaches Geralt, he's still that way. He still wants to get up, but he's still not healthy enough to do so. The first thing Yennefer does is apologize because she doesn't have Ciri with her. And Geralt apologizes for allowing Vilgefortz to get the best of him. Yennefer then tells Geralt about Tissaia passing away. Yennefer's really concerned because she doesn't know who's going to lead them. And Geralt says, you are. He then tells Yen, I need you to heal me. The Dryads, they did what they could, but I need to be healthy so I can make Emhyr pay and I can make Vilgefortz pay. And I can get our girl back. Kind of emotional for Yennefer because she feels like if she does this and she sends him on his way, it'll be the last time she sees him. So she says, promise me that this won't be the last time because I need you. And Geralt says, I need you too, Yen. Yennefer then starts using her magic to heal Geralt, and it works. In the morning, Yennefer heads back to go meet with Marigold and a couple of other mages and rally the troops a little bit. The Brotherhood might be gone, but in its place seems to be the Sisterhood, led by Yennefer. And she tells all of them that they need to eliminate Vilgefortz. And Vilgefortz has gone off to stand side by side with the White Flame. But so has Frangilla and Francesca. Now, their motives are a little bit different, but they do approach the White Flame with an offer. They tell him that while it looks like he's won, there's still work to be done. They need to secure Temeria's most critical supply chain. If they lose that, they're going to lose this entire war. What he needs is someone who knows Cintra inside and out. Actually, what he needs is two people that know Cintra inside and out. She's talking about herself and Francesca. This will be a win-win because Frangilla will serve the White Flame while also giving Francesca's people safe haven. The White Flame accepts the offer, but Francesca makes a critical mistake. She mentions how the Scoia'tael deserves peace, and he says, oh, no, I need them. You can lead the elves into Cintra. I mean, the old ones, the sick ones, the ones who can't fight. But the Scoia'tael, they're going to have to stay with us. This really pisses Francesca off, who tells the White Flame, they're not going to do that, not as long as they serve me. And he shoots back, then disavow them. Either they die fighting for us so the rest of your people may live, or all your people die. While initially Francesca was pissed off, the more she had time to think about it, the more she thought that the White Flame was right. The entire proposal from Frangilla was all a plan to grab Ciri, hand her over to Francesca, and now she's got her. But when Frangilla meets up with Francesca later in the day and explains how this plan will be great for them and it'll work out, Francesca cuts her off and says, no, sacrificed too much already. I'm going to accept the White Flame's offer. Frangilla is shocked by this, but she also doesn't want to serve the White Flame. She wants out. She tries to remind Francesca that Ciri can give her Dol Plathana, but Francesca says, no, it's not out there. It used to be, but we lost it. Home is where my people are safe, and they'll be safe in Cintra. My people certainly won't be safe in an unknown sphere with a girl with unknown powers. Especially when I know that we're going to be under Nilfgaard's protection. They continue to go back and forth on this, arguing until finally Frangilla reveals that it was actually the White Flame who had Francesca's baby killed. At this revelation, Francesca is very hurt. But it's hard to see who she's more mad at. The White Flame for doing it, or Frangilla for knowing about it and just now revealing it. Frangilla tries to deflect, putting all the blame on the White Flame, but Francesca just looks at her and says, Amir does not know the meaning of suffering, but he will. And so will you. They then seem to head off to bed because the next day is going to be when Ciri finally arrives back in Nilfgaard. That means Geralt doesn't have a lot of time. After Yennefer did her spell, Geralt felt a lot better. It seemed to work. He started training a little bit more, and he feels like he's ready to leave. When he does, Jasker's going to be right by his side. In his downtime, he writes songs. And at one point, he's trying to write a song when Dara shows up. Jasker recognizes Dara, but it takes Dara reminding him what he did for him to really jog the memory. Something's been really eating at Dara this entire time. When he found his own people, he felt like he found a family. But he couldn't get over the fact that they agreed to fight for the White Flame. He couldn't do it, so he ran. Geralt then walks up and interrupts the conversation, and Dara then turns his attention to Geralt and says, I knew Ciri. She was the first person I really felt safe with. If you see her again, tell her I forgive her, and that I'm truly sorry. Seeing her again is certainly the plan. Despite Milva telling him that he's not ready, the next day, Geralt and Jasker leave. Upon trying to get to Nilfgaard, they do reach a checkpoint. It's the Nilfgaardian army. Now, Geralt and Jasker, they're able to get through, but the soldiers in the army, they're dicks. And when Geralt sees them messing with an innocent family, he can't just let it lie. He goes back, and he shows that maybe he is back to 100%, because he kills all of them. Well, all but the final one. He gets a little help, because Milva didn't think he was ready, and Milva was following him to kind of be that extra set of eyes and a bit of protection. Geralt, Jaskier, and Milva then head off to Nilfgaard to get Ciri back, while Yennefer is doing her best to make sure that when Geralt does reclaim her, she has a safe world to return to. Might be too late, though. That day is the day where they're having the ceremony to welcome Ciri back into Nilfgaard. The White Flame is there. Vilgefortz is by his side. But when Ciri walks through the castle and gets to Emhyr, it's not Ciri. It's Taryn. She still looks just like Ciri, and she has the entire kingdom of Nilfgaard fooled. So, where's Ciri? Well, her captors never turned her in. She's a prisoner. She's chained up in a bar with another kid who's a prisoner. They're able, though, to create a distraction with their captors by causing a little bit of infighting that distracts them enough so they're able to free themselves. The other prisoner also gets help from his buddies. They show up just in the nick of time. So you've got Ciri, this other prisoner, and his friends taking out all of the captors. And to everyone's surprise, Ciri is more than holding her own. But they leave Ciri's captor for her. They hand him a sword and they say, let's make this a fair fight. And Ciri plays cat and mouse with this guy. He's no match for her. But eventually, she does have to do what she was warned about, and that is plunge a sword right into a guy's chest and kill him. She had avoided this moment pretty much her entire life, and when it finally happens, it kind of shakes her a little bit. She's silent. The rest of the group, with everybody dead, they start rifling through pockets, grabbing whatever they can. And what seems to be the leader walks up to her and says, yeah, they say it feels bad taking a life, but it doesn't. Missile then asks Ciri, what's your name? And instead of giving her real name, Ciri says, you can call me Falka. And it certainly seems like Ciri is headed off with this group. And that is the end of Season 3 of The Witcher. Thank you so much for getting this part of the recap. I really appreciate it. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. Be nice in the comments section. If I messed a name up, you don't have to point it out. It's okay. You can just let it go. I do have merch. I have t-shirts and hats and stuff. Go buy something. I have a Patreon. Go subscribe. I'll see you back here for Season 4.